Trustees, please be upstanding to receive the Worshipful Mayor of Poole.
Please be seated. Hello everyone. I'd like to welcome the Charter Trustees to this meeting of the Poole Charter Trustees and to the press and the members of the public. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone follow these ground rules for speaking. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand physically to indicate. Councillors, officers, members of the public and the press in attendance are recommended to wear a face covering whilst moving around. Where there appears to be consensus in the meeting for a motion, I will ask if there is any dissension. When a formal vote is required, this will be carried out by a show of hands. Councillors are advised that there is no live stream of this meeting. However, it will be recorded via the 360 camera and uploaded following the meeting. Before we start the business on the agenda, as you know, the Charter Trustees is a non-political body with the primary objective being to maintain and promote the historic and ceremonial traditions of Poole. I am keen that we all work together to maintain this objective. In addition, I'd like to welcome Susan Zeiss to the meeting, who is here representing Graham Farrant, who sends his apologies. Okay. I'll ask Susan Zeiss to report the apologies received for this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've received apologies from Councillor John Beasley, Councillor Mike Brooke, Councillor David Brown, Councillor Nicola Green, Councillor Mark Howell, and Councillor Chris Matthews. Thank you.
And Councillor Batts has given her apologies as well. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Ms. Zeiss, can you report on any declarations of interest received, please?
None received, Madam Mayor.
Perfect, thank you. Oh, sorry. Councillor
Thank you, Madam
Rampton.
Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you. Right, Charter Trustees are asked to receive the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of October 2021 and to consider any matters arising. Okay, any matters arising from the minutes? Which are on my phone?
Could I ask what's happening about the flag? What progress has been made on design or production or whatever?
Good question. Over to Karen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In relation to the flag, you're aware of your decision at your last meeting. Obviously, at present, there are a number of options around colourways, etc., as to how that would be put together. So we will be contacting all Charter Trustees to give those options available to you.
Thank you. Okay. Perfect. Anyone else? Any questions regarding the minutes and etc.? No. Okay. So my report, I haven't really done very much because COVID seems to have come back in and bitten me on the backside, to be fair. So I've done the Catford Heath poppies, which was amazing. That was really good. I loved it. So many poppies and really good story behind them. I really did like that. Was in the Dolphin for the Poole Poppy Appeal. Really good. I love working with the veterans. It was really cool. The High Sheriff's Legal Service. That was good. 2-minute silence, obviously, Remembrance Sunday. The Society for Poole Lunch was really nice. And the Rifles Regiment dinner in London was totally out of this world. It was so good, really nice. The Parkston Yacht Club reception, very nice. Private view of the local Earth Day 1 exhibition. Now that was really good. The lady does quite a lot of work in Poole as a volunteer, just getting the message out there. Friends of Family Park Christmas Fete, that was brilliant. the Princess Trust team presentation, very good, but I like the Princess Trust. To me is a really good one. Festival of Christmas Trees and Carol concert, same, brilliant. And the present prizes for Light Up Hamworthy, which was good. And I have the Holocaust Memorial Day tomorrow. Okay, so that's basically a very short amount of things I've managed to get done this time. Right, agenda, future banking arrangements. I call on Matthew Filmer, Responsible Financial Officer, to present the report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Charter Trustees. So you may recall back in October, I brought a recommendation to the Charter Trustees to join Bcp Council in the recently tendered banking contract for Barclays. So a bit of background, just to remind you, Bcp Council currently has 3 bank providers, which is HSBC, Lloyds and Barclays. We went out to retender and Barclays was successful in that contract award. I think it was fair to say there was some discussion around in that October meeting. There was a consensus that I would bring back a report that gave a bit more detail to Charter Trustees so they could make a more informed decision about the future banking provider. So the report firstly sets out the tendering exercise that Bcp Council carried out, and I know there was some discussions around Barclays' environmental credentials last time, cited as being part of the dirty dozen through their investments in fossil fuels. It's not something I'm going to comment on because I think we could probably tar the same brush with a number of other high street banks. If you look into the news, you will see similar stories of failings on environmental, social and governance compliance type matters. I think for the council, particularly from the finance perspective, the security of public funds has to be and will always be the priority that we look for when we choose a banking provider. So the report then goes into setting out 3 options that I see the Charter Trustees have and the associated costs with them. So that is to join the Barclays contract, which has no associated costs with joining that contract, and you have the advantage of having investment income as part of the pooled arrangements that exist at the moment. The second option is to carry on as we are with HSBC, but I estimate that will have a cost of around £2,250. You will lose your investment income as part of the pooling arrangements. You will be charged bank charges that you don't currently incur. The accountancy recharge that we charge to the Charter Trustees will increase because of the additional administration that we have to carry out overseeing the HSBC contract. And there'll be a few one-off system costs in terms of the setup. Now, you may wonder why these costs would come up if we have a contract existing with HSBC already. Part of the reason is the council is streamlining a lot of our processes. As I said, we're going down to 3 bank accounts. We're going from 3 bank accounts into 1. We're moving a lot of our income processing to an automated system. So if we go against that grain, the costs of the council will increase and those costs will have to be passed on to the Charter Trustees. The other option that Charter Trustees have is to re-tender the contract themselves for a bank provider, and I've estimated those costs at £6,750. So on top of the costs that I've just highlighted, there'll be additional costs from finance and procurement at the council to support that as a process. And I think it's important to note that at the moment the council has a number of priorities, including the transformation programme, so we probably wouldn't be able to support that for some time. So considering all those financial aspects that I've just set out, my recommendation to Charter Trustees would still be to join the Barclays contracts, as there's no cost associated with such. There may potentially be a reputational risk associated with joining that contract, but as I said, I think we could say that for a lot of bank providers out in the market. HSBC is my second recommendation, should you not choose to join the Barclays contract, but be aware of the associated costs. And the retendering option, I've discounted as an option to be recommended today because we need to set a budget preset by the 31st of January. We need to ensure that we've got the costs agreed for that budget going forward. So if there is consensus with Charter Trustees that they do want to retender, my view would be to go with the HSBC existing contract, and then we can look at options going forward. So I'll stop there, Madam Mayor, and take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question related. Thank you for first of all say thank you for doing that, because I was involved with that request, and it's really appreciated. It's obviously sad to hear today's news that Barclays are vacating Barclays House, which isn't obviously was one of the factors about having a presence in town and being a local employer. My question relates to the length of a tender. At what point would the council be looking to tender again? Because obviously tender costs wouldn't apply if we coincided a review of it at the next time of tender. So I'm just looking for a timing on that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's very, very difficult to hear when people are wearing a mask, and I think I missed most of that.
I'm happy to take it off, but my child has tested positive, so I don't want to put you at risk. I have every right to be here. I do not have to self-isolate. I have tested negative today. I'm just trying to protect those of you who may be more vulnerable than me.
Yes. Can I sit? It's just a bit easier. Thank you. Yes, I wanted to ask the Finance Officer. I was just interested by your statement saying something like that you weren't going to offer an opinion on the climate aspect of Barclays. I appreciate it's incredibly complicated, but the Council has declared a climate emergency, and so I'm just proposing that it should be something that is part of your responsibility. That was pretty much it. Thank you.
For you, Madam Mayor, so taking Councillor's first question, the contract for Barclays is 5 years before we re-tender, but we have the option to extend it for 10 years. So it'll be then on a yearly rolling contract thereafter. In regards to the second question about my responsibilities in regards to environmental impacts, that'd be fair to say, how you? I do appreciate it's becoming a part of my role that we need to take more account of. As I said in the report, our internal controls for our assessment of that contract, it went through a decision impact assessment that did look at the environmental impact, and that was assessed by our internal environmental climate change team. So for me, that gave me enough confidence in the decision we've taken, but probably more to do for our role going forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've heard the facts that if we go to HSBC, it could cost us up to £3,000 or possibly even more. If we go out to tender, it's going to cost £6,000 plus the sort of additional costs that we would get with HSBC. If we stay with Barclays, or go with Barclays, it's not going to cost the Charter Trustees anything, and we have a big responsibility with a limited budget. And quite frankly, whilst I understand the concerns about climate change, whether we remain with Barclays or not will not have one iota of difference to climate change, and it certainly won't improve anything in the BCP conurbation whatsoever. So I would like to propose, if anybody's going to second me, that in fact we stay with Barclays and take the recommendation of the Financial Officer.
Madam Mayor, I'd certainly like to second Councillor Stribley and add a few words. It is difficult with banks. Every bank has a history. I'd be surprised if many of those banks did not have carbon-based customers. Equally, we talk about HSBC and others, and I think recently they've been fined a significant amount in Asia for money laundering. On top of that, during the previous 2 or 3 years, there's been sad events where banks have been reducing risk by chasing debt and unfortunately, that's led to some potentially solvent businesses going out of business. So I'm not interested in token gestures. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter because of the size of the account, the reality of what's out there. It might grab a headline, but it doesn't do any good, and it doesn't change or make one iota of difference. So I will support what has been rightfully recommended in the best interests of the Charter Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rice.
I can never remember the order, but if it was possible to propose an amendment whereby we just ask Barclays to reconsider their carbon footprint investments or something along those lines, so that we can just apply a little bit of pressure. Would that be possible?
I'm passing that over to Susan.
So Councillor Rice, that I would see as a motion proposed from the floor rather than an amendment, because the recommendation before you is whether or not to go with the bank or to go with a different bank. So I'm not quite sure how that would be an amendment to that recommendation, but it certainly could be a motion. But what Madam Mayor would need to do is vote on the proposal on the floor first, and then come back to you if you still want to make that motion.
Okay, thank you. Could we have a show of hands on if everybody's in agreement with going with Barclays? I'm putting my hand up as well. Sorry, Councillor White, sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay, so what? Any against? One. Any abstentions? Oh, one. I got one here. Where are you abstaining to? Oh, I don't know. Okay, so that's going forward. Thank you. Where am I now? The budget and precept. Oh, sorry, Councillor Rice. Sorry, yes, good remembering.
Would now be the right time to put forward some motion? Yes. If anybody else has any better wording, then more than happy to accept it. But perhaps something along the lines of, since BCP Council has declared a climate emergency, could Barclays be in alignment with our values and expectations and the Paris Agreement with their funding?
Not full council, yes. It brings it into the...
well, I was assuming that have we not declared a climate emergency then?
I'm passing that over to Susan as well, or Richard, or whoever.
Okay, well, you can leave out the climate emergency aspect, I suppose, and just say...
Say that again, sorry.
We can leave out the climate emergency aspect and say given the climate emergency in general, could Barclays be focused on meeting the Paris Agreement requirements?
Okay, I'm going to pass. I'm just going to ask the legal team, because obviously, sorry,
Madam Mayor, don't we have to have notice of motions?
I'm passing that to Susan. Come on, guys, you need to help me out here.
So, with your permission,
yes,
Madam Mayor,
Susan, thank
there are some motions that can be proposed from the floor, but in any event, I think we would need Councillor Rice's motion in writing so that we could properly understand what it is that she's proposing, because as I understand it, you initially said, Councillor Rice, you were going to request that the Charter Trustees write to Barclays and ask them, but that you didn't mention that the second time you said. So I wonder if you could possibly type it out for us and we can have a look at it.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. So that, Councillor Mellor.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. We've now voted on what was the substantive business. So there's probably no time pressure. If Councillor Rice wanted to work that up and bring that to the next Charter Trustees meeting, for us to write a letter to Barclays, I think that, that's something that we could put on the agenda.
That's a good idea.
I don't think we need to look at it now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a... Councillor Rice?
Thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Trent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was actually wondering whether it makes more sense if the Charter Trustees formally requested that Bcp Council, who ultimately have the account and probably have more clout with Barclays, actually make that representation on our behalf. I think that would be the better way of doing it, because we are effectively using a BCP account, and I would have thought that the whole of BCP Council, maybe that is a motion that we should request, or a request on behalf of the Charter Trustees for BCP Council to make a representation to that effect. There's a more appropriate way of dealing with it.
I'm just going to, can I bring Councillor Shibley in a second, and then you guys have a thought of
Madam Mayor, we seem to be going round in circles and wasting time. Any member of BCP Council is entitled to put a motion to BCP Council, and if members feel strongly that a letter should be written to Barclays, simply put in that motion. Quite frankly, the Charter of Trustees asking BCP Council is just a waste of time and effort, because we would need it to go through another meeting of the Charter Trustees before it could be sent on to BCP Council.
Thank you, Councillor Shibley. Talking to the legal team, we believe that Councillor Mellor's suggestion is the best one. Councillor Trent, yourself and Councillor Rice are welcome to do the letters and bring it to us at the next meeting. Is that okay with you guys?
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 6, the budget and precept 22-23. Call on Matthew Filmer, responsible financial officer, to present the report. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just for clarity, based on that decision on agenda item 5, the focus of the budget is on Appendix A, because there was a differing reserve movement based on which bank provider was selected. So Appendix A is what I'll be referring to. So the report starts with an update in terms of the in-year position for 21-22, which has improved since my last update in October, mainly because of the COVID impact on the activities the Charter Trustees have been able to carry out. There's an underspend of just over 23,000, and Appendix A, as I said, sets out that detailed forecast for you to have a look at. It also sets out the detailed budgets for 22-23. And in preparation for the 22-23 budget, we held a budget workshop with a number of Charter Trustees back in December to get their view on a number of key items within the budget. One of those key areas, and certainly one of the most material items within the budget, is the staffing recharge from BCP Council. So the staffing recharge covers the head and deputy head of democratic services, the PAs and the mace bearers, and the cost of those posts are shared across BCP Chairman, the Bournemouth Charter Trustees and the Poole Charter Trustees. The previous split across the Charter Trustees was 60% went to Bournemouth and 40% was charged to Bournemouth. Following a review by Democratic Services, it was felt that a 50-50 split is now is a reflection of the time that's spent looking after both Charter Trustees, and therefore that's been built into the proposed budget for 22-23. This unfortunately does have the implication of increasing the base budget requirement by over 19,000, and the details of that staffing charge can be found in Appendix C to the report. The other noteworthy change to draw your attention to is the introduction of a charge for the use of the vehicles. So this previously wasn't in place. BCP Council wasn't charging the Charter Trustees. This is now at £2,000 per annum, and this is based on the useful life of the vehicle, the expected maintenance costs of that vehicle, and the expected usage across the two Charter Trustees and the BCP Council Chairman. Figure 1 of the report sets out the Charter Trustees' forecast reserve position. So as at the end of March, we're forecasting to have over 109,000 in reserves, which is roughly 88% of the proposed council tax precept for next year. You'll see in 22-23 there is planned use of over 13,000 to support the budget. Now, reserves being at that level potentially could be deemed to be excessive because of the level, but I'd make clear that's not of any fault of the Charter Trustees. That's just the lack of activity and the inability to be able to spend money. But it still allows a healthy level of reserves to deal with any unexpected expenditure or any activities that the Charter Trustees want to carry out outside of the base budget. The report also updates Charter Trustees in regards to the tax base. So the tax base is the number of properties that the precept is charged against for Poole. We had quite a drop-off in the tax base as a result of COVID-19 for this year. But next year we're starting to see a rebound, and for Poole the number of properties has increased by over 1,000, and that has the impact of effectively reducing the charge to residents of Poole. So in summary, the proposal for council tax for 22-23 is a demand of £124,173, which is slightly up from last year. That is net of the use of reserves, as I referred to earlier. But what that means is the Band E charge for residents remains the same. It's frozen at £2.14. Now, consideration was given as to whether the charge should be increased or whether we should not use reserves, as that's not necessarily a sustainable method of balancing a budget. But as I said, reserves are extremely healthy, and we felt that there was justification to use reserves for this one-off budget. Going forward, we may need to increase the precept, but there are two other things to consider. We would like to see further increases in the tax base, which might offset some increased costs, and we need to do a whole-scale review of the accommodation charge for the Charter Trustees at Poole. So I'll pause there, Madam Mayor. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Matthew. Much appreciated. Do we have any questions for Matthew? Councillor Slade and then Councillor Diane.
Thank you. I will go close to here and I will speak slowly, okay? A couple of questions. First of all, just clarity on the 80% of the civic staff. Is it still 80% for the two Charter Trustees and 20% for the Chair and Vice Chair of BCP? And then it's 50% of the 80%. Thank you. Okay, that's good. The other questions I had was, there's a £3,000 in the budget for civic regalia. That sounds like a lot of money, and what if you could just confirm what that actually is? And my other two questions relate to vehicles. I'm pleased to see the recharge on vehicles, but it still seems very low against the market rate, which then puts quite a significant cost back to BCP on these mayoral vehicles, which are mainly being used by the mayoralty. So my question is this a market rate? Where does this figure come from? And the second question relates to the fuel costs. In August 2019, fuel was 128 pence per litre. In November 2020, it was 114. It's now 142 pence per litre. And yet the fuel costs that you've got in here are very similar to the costs of the budget that would have been set in 2021 based upon 2020 figures. And I find it a bit odd, bearing in mind we're expecting them to go up further. Why has that figure not gone up higher this year? I know last year you didn't spend it, but there's an expectation that we'll start spending again. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Matthew?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the first question in regards to civic regalia, and Karen, Richard might want to jump in. I believe that's to do with the mayor's badge that's purchased for every past mayor, I believe. I'll just pause there if that's that. I'll pass on to Richard and Karen just to confirm.
So in relation to that budget, it's the purchase of the past mayor's badge. It also relates to the honours boards, and also in the context of any repairs to existing regalia, which is obviously within the ownership of the Charter Trustees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The second question in regards to the cars. So we have an established process within the council in regards to our fleet services. So we have to calculate the cost of vehicles and they're spread across different services. And it's used in the same method for the chauffeur's vehicle. What we did find when we looked at the actual use of those vehicles, the BCP chairman was in use of those vehicles more so than the Charter Trustees. So that's part of the reason why it might seem low on the face of it. The last question in regards to fuel cost, this was something I did look at with the PAs, and we came to the conclusion that £100 a month would be sufficient for a refill of the car. And that was our basis for that budget.
Thank you, Matthew. Councillor Butler, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask about the costing of the room and premises rental. I know at the last meeting that Mr. Filmer said that this is a fixed cost to the Charter Trustees from the council, but surely we're all councillors for the council. Surely can't we have a cheaper rate than that? Because it's a very high cost. Is that possible? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the cost of these premises goes through what we call administration building recharge. So there is quite a detailed premise that we use to calculate it. The Poole Civic Centre has quite a lot of overheads. It's not a particularly fuel energy efficient building, so it has high gas and electricity usage. I might refer to Karen and Rich in terms of the plans for next year in regards to the accommodation, but the budget for next year will probably be, a portion will be charged from BCP Council, and then an element of that budget will be used to find alternate accommodation for next year. So that's why it's remained as it has.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, clearly, with the changes, we are clearly keeping that under review and assessing alternative venues that we may use for the Charter Trustees. And of course, with that will be a recalculation of any recharges when we know the future of the use of the building and so on. So it is where we are at the moment, but clearly that will need to be reviewed moving forward.
Is that okay, Councillor Butler? Thank you. Anyone else? Any more questions regarding anything? Perfect. Thank you very much. So, right, do I need to... Can I have a mover on that motion, please? Councillor Miller and Councillor... What's that name? What's that one? Councillor O'Neill, sorry. Brain's gone. Thank you. Everybody in favour of that? Any abstentions? Any against? No, that's the pass then, thank you. Right, review of the risk register. I call on Karen Tompkins, Deputy Head of Democratic Services, to present the report. Please, Karen, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I can refer Charter Trustees to agenda item 7, there is a written report with your papers. The last time the risk register was reviewed was 12 months ago. Obviously, as you appreciate, it's best practice for us to review the register on a regular basis. You will see that within the report at paragraph 3, I've identified some sort of key updates in the context of action that has been taken on the elements of the risk register. I won't go through those in detail, hopefully they're self-explanatory. And in paragraph 4 of the report, it's not only about what's already on your risk register, but it's also about being conscious of new and evolving risks as we progress through the operation of the Charter Trustees. And what you've just touched on is accommodation for the future. So the proposal is that we include that, if you're happy, as a new risk to the register around alternative accommodation that we will be looking for and are in the process of undertaking that work for the Charter Trustees for formal meetings, regalia talks and other civic engagements when the building works commences on the Poole Civic Centre. I'm happy to respond to any questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Karen, very much. Does anyone have any questions for Karen? No? Perfect. Thank you very much, Karen. Okay. Oh, can I request a move for the recommendation, please? Councillor White and Councillor, I don't know his name. Andrews, thank you. And is everyone in agreement with that motion? Any against? No, there isn't, is there? No, any abstentions? Oh. Okay, agenda item 8, the Queen's Jubilee celebrations, the beacons. I call on John Weaver, Head of Destination and Events, to introduce this item, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, everybody probably realises that this year is the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations, and you're aware that throughout the year, Her Majesty and the members of the Royal Family will be travelling around the country to undertake various engagements and mark this occasion. And it culminates to the focal point of the Platinum Jubilee weekend in June with an extended bank holiday from Thursday the 2nd to the Sunday the 5th. And that provides the opportunity for communities and people throughout the UK to come together to celebrate this milestone. The 4 days of celebrations will include events and community activities as well as the national moments of reflection on the Queen's 70 years of service. And on Thursday, June the 2nd, the United Kingdom's long tradition of celebrating royal jubilees, weddings and coronations with the lighting of beacons will be continued to mark the Platinum Jubilee. So there will be a series of beacon lighting events across the country that evening, on that evening of the 2nd. And the Corporate Management Board have proposed that the option of holding a beacon lighting event will be given to the Charter Trustees of Bournemouth, Poole and the Town Council of Christchurch. And the application to the management would still be through the events team, and the events team can assist in some of the organisation with the responsibility for the actual beacon to be provided by the trustees. And in this occasion in Poole, I believe we already have a beacon, so there isn't a requirement to purchase one. So we have historically, we've had within the BCP area, have had beacon events before. They haven't always, they've mixed degree of success, but I think this year, with it being the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, that providing everybody gets behind it, and if the trustees want to go with it, and I'm sure it will be a success. And I think location will be an important determinant on that success. As you're probably aware, that is the day when we're going to get that network. But if you felt that you wanted to align it with other events over that weekend, that would be obviously the choice of the trustees. But the main focus will be to have that network of beacons over the weekend. You're probably aware that we presented on Monday to the trustees of Bournemouth, who have accepted that they wish to have a beacon lighting ceremony and looking at determining location, and that they're also looking at the potential funded by the Bournemouth trustees, together with I think partnership investment from commercial operators, to put on a firework display at the same time, potentially on one of the piers. But the option is there if the trustees wish to take up that option of the beacon, organised by the events team. It's there for you to consider.
Thank you, John, very much appreciated. Councillor de Poderin.
Thank you. I've just got a question. I don't think, experienced beacon lighting in Poole before. Is there a traditional site for it? Where is it usually held? I think Councillor Stribley is very experienced and no doubt knows the answer.
Councillor Stribley, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In fact, we had a beacon lighting in 2015 or 16, I forget which was, when there were beacons lit all around the country. And the Poole site is at Sea View, where in fact you can see across to Purbeck and elsewhere. However, I did think at the time that maybe we ought to have a second beacon outside the harbour entrance, so that could be seen along the coast as well. And it might well be that the Poole Harbour Commissioners would agree to cooperate on that. But the Poole site is sea view, top of Evening Hill, and it's visible to virtually the whole of Poole. Bournemouth might not get a good view of it, but from North Christchurch, but it does connect up with other beacons across the country.
Thank you, Councillor Stribley. And we had one at Beta, didn't we? Yes. That's the one I attended, I remember. It was very good, wasn't it? So, any other questions? Councillor Trent.
Yeah, I was slightly puzzled when I read the report because, you know, it said historically beacon lighting events haven't been well attended. And then it sort of talked about would we consider holding an event as part of a wider event? Well, I thought that the event we were talking about is the wide event. You know, it's the national event. So I was slightly confused by that part of the report. You know, I think we should do it in the most appropriate location. I think it was priced up for one beacon. I think the beacon that we got access to in Poole. But, you know, if we have got access to more than one beacon, then I think you can actually cover better with more than one beacon. But I was just a little confused about what these other events were that we were being suggested as alternative beacon lighting occasions.
I'll pass over to John, please, for a response. Thank you.
Very simply that in the past some have had that the beacon lighting in terms of the locations haven't been well attended, not necessarily in Poole, but in other areas. So what we were saying was that if you wanted to do something associated with a specific event, which is on the Saturday and Sunday, you could have your own lighting there. It wasn't a suggestion that you should. The best option by far, and you're quite right, is to have it linked in with the synchronisation of that particular event. So that was all it was saying you might want to do something separate outside that. That's all it is, very simply. So you can, you know, I think the choice everybody's saying is you have it on the Thursday. That's the best time to have it synchronising with all the other beacons being lit. So.
Is there a particular cost to beacon events? You talk about £500.
That, yes, there is no. In terms of beacon events, we're offering that the events team will do the primary arrangements of locating the beacon, putting all the various stewarding that's required and all the logistics and insurance and risk assessments. And we will be there to provide that support for each of the towns. We would spread the team across the three towns at the same time. I think Christchurch are thinking of doing something themselves, but certainly that's what we would do. There's no cost per se to the trustees for us putting that on.
Thank you, John. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we are here to celebrate the history of Poole, and part of the beacons is about line of sight and linking to other beacons. So I think those things are quite important. So I think the location, and it was 2018, according to our website, that the Mayor, Councillor Stribley, lit the beacon. That site is a good site. I suppose the question is, what are Dorset doing, and particularly Purbeck's, in terms of outside the harbour? It's a bit wet out there. I wonder whether something on the Purbeck's might be lit in terms of that chain and that visibility and the history. And I think, you know, encouraging people to realise that this is a time when we didn't have telephones.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Do you need John to... I don't suppose you actually know the answer to that if Dorset are doing...
Very good question. No, I don't, but I can certainly find out and get back to you. But certainly, I mean, obviously, if there's been a tradition for it to be at the sea view, then that's where you know, the choice is with the trustees where you want to locate it. But certainly, I can make that inquiry. But no, I don't know where the other beacons are lit in the rest of Dorset, and it will probably be individual parishes and will be asked. Individual communities will be asked, and that intelligence may emerge as the weeks and months go on towards the celebrations. There's probably actually the website, the Platinum, thinking of it, probably will be, there is a specific website on the beacons and where people can register their interest, so we can pick that intelligence up as it develops. But I can certainly make some inquiries.
Thank you, John. Is that okay, Councillor Hadley? Yes? Okay. Councillor Butler, please. Has anyone else got their hand up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I suggest that Beta Park would be an ideal site, because if we're wanting people to join in, and this is a real community event for the whole of Poole, we have got the space there, it's accessible to people because it's flat, and health and safety wise it's not near anything that is flammable, whereas some of the other things would be. So it would give lots of space, it's easy to access and easy to get to different forms of transport as well. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Karen or Richard, is there a response to that, or shall we just leave it as a suggestion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think, as John's indicated, if the Charter Trustees in principle support the event, there's obviously a number of options that have been highlighted around siting that maybe officers can go away and explore and liaise with the Charter Trustees on the most appropriate siting. I don't know whether any other officers want to make any additional comments. I suppose the only other issue is whether you would want to explore any firework displays or anything like that. So I just throw that into the mix.
Thank you very much. Councillor Podovin and then Councillor
Thank you.
Haynes.
Actually, Councillor Butler has really made the point I was going to make, that if we look, it depends what we're looking at. If we're looking at visibility and completing the chain, then Seaview would be the ideal location. But if we're looking at community participation and engagement, then definitely Beta, because Seaview is much more limited in terms of parking, accessibility and space. The ideal thing, I suppose, would be to have two, a sort of symbolic one at Seaview to complete the chain, but one for an event that we want as many people to come to as possible at Beta.
Good idea, thank you. I've just got two others. Councillor Haynes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think everyone that's spoken, I haven't heard any dissension to this idea, so I just wanted to put a proposal forward, which is that as Charter Trustees of Poole, we would actually support the beacon lighting event, and that the details as to where the beacon should be, we've already got an existing site at the Seaview, or as Councillor Butler has suggested, Beta, or Councillor Stribley has suggested, entrance to the harbour, that those details can be worked out by Mr Weaver and in consultation with yourself, Madam Mayor, and the Sheriff, I believe, will actually be invested at the time of this beacon lighting ceremony. So if I have a seconder, I would actually like to make that proposal. And I think the other thing I would like to add to it, Madam Mayor, because for my sins, I also sit on the Bournemouth Charter Trustee, and there was huge enthusiasm there to support this event. And as Mr Weaver had said, that they wanted to coordinate it with some other event, possibly a fireworks display. So I think as part of the planning for this, I would like to see that if we're doing this, it will be a coordinated event so that it's all properly linked. And obviously, if Christchurch Town Council decide they want to do something, that it's all linked so that as, although we're three separate organisations in terms of the mayoralty, we are one council so that it is all linked. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councillor Haynes. That was really informative, thank you. And can we please vote on whether we're for the motion, please? Yay. That's an overall floor. Right, thank you very much. Councillor Stribley, did you want to come in on that now?
No, Madam Mayor, I'm very happy to support either one or two.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. Or 10, we'll be fine. Okay, thank you so much. Oh, sorry, John, sorry.
Can I just make a comment that if you wanted more than one, I have a fairly good team, but I'm going to be in 3 locations. It's a bit of a stretch to do 2. So we're happy to, if there was another one, obviously we're happy to help, but we couldn't get the team down to organise a second. And can I also just confirm, I hope this is not inappropriate, but can I have sort of someone perhaps from the trustees, if it's with you, to actually liaise with?
Yep,
and really I'd like to have a consultation with you. I mean, I can make recommendations, but I'd rather have it as a bit of a two-way
you
thing,
need-
but I'd
yeah.
really like to get that consensus and engagement with you, rather than me as an officer saying this is where it's going to go, take it or leave it. I don't want that.
Councillor Stribley? They're not working properly.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I think we're all content with the general principle behind it, and I believe liaison should be between the mayor and the sheriff at the time, and or the deputy mayor, whichever way it runs around. So I think we're happy with that, with the civic party.
Thank you so much, Councillor Stribley. And John, thank you. Really good conversation, thank you. So we'll be working, the three of us can be working with that, so thank you. Agenda item 9, nomination of Sheriff of Poole for 22-23 and subsequent mayor in 23-24. I call on Karen Tompkins, Deputy Head of Democratic Services, to report on this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this item, Charter Trustees, is for information. As you are aware, prior to Christmas, a letter went out to all Poole Charter Trustees seeking nominations for Sheriff for 22-23 and onwards to Mayor for 23-24. The closing date has now passed. I'm able to report to you we have 2 nominations that have been submitted, and I've spoken to both of the nominations. The nominees, they want to put their names forward, so we will now go to a secret ballot. That secret ballot will be done outside of this meeting with all Charter Trustees, and I think Richard probably can confirm that we will probably use the election buddy. So we will notify all Charter Trustees as to when the ballot will be undertaken, so that you can keep your eye open for an email. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Karen. Everyone happy with that? Anyone got any questions? Councillor Stribley, please.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I seem to be saying more than I should this evening.
Carry on.
It is practice and custom that the sheriff generally continues on to be mayor, but it's not written in stone, and there have been numerous occasions in the past where the sheriff has either had a break before becoming mayor, or indeed has never become mayor for various reasons. So it should not necessarily be assumed that whoever becomes sheriff next year will automatically go on to be mayor following. And I'm afraid that is the implication in the note that we've got.
Sorry, Councillor Stribley. Councillor Slade?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I have a point of order. This is a matter for who the sheriff is being nominated for next year. This is not relevant to this matter. I think that comes under Standing Order Point 3.
One of you guys are going to have to answer that for me. Karen, thank you.
I'm happy to try and respond to that, Chairman. Taking on board what Councillor Stribley has said, and to confirm, the formal appointment of any person to the role of mayor must be taken at the mayor-making meeting in May each year.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Slade?
No, it doesn't, because the point of this is to report back the actual request for a nomination for the sheriff for next year. Therefore, I don't see the relevance of the point that is being made, because it is purely a point of order that there have been 2 nominations, and therefore the next item is that a secret ballot should take place. There is nothing else that needs to be debated or discussed on that matter. That is the matter reported for information only.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Slade. So moving on from that, is there any other business? No. Oh, Councillor Howell.
I guess I have a question about future business. Might just be heavy anyway, but. This isn't a formal local government meeting, is it? So can't we just have these online in future? There's presumably no restriction for us doing that as a non-local government meeting, and it would certainly make things easier, I think, for lots of people.
Thank you, Councillor Howell. I'm going over to the legal guys to... Can't record, can we? No, that's right. We couldn't record if it was over on Teams. so hence the public wouldn't get to know what we discussed. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, thank you for the question. We can certainly look at it in more detail, but I believe that the High Court ruling applied to both the 1972 Act that covers principal authorities and the 1960 Act that covers parish and town councils, of which charter trustees fall into those regulations. So your meetings are convened under legislation, under the Admissions to Meetings Act, I think it was called 1960. Yeah. So that I believe that was part of that High Court ruling that requires meetings to be held in person.
Thank you, Richard. Right, the meeting is called to an end now, a few minutes before 6 o'clock. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Members and officers, please be upstanding.